Marty is a very interesting character. The only way that I could really understand him is by analyzing all of his scenes in excruciating detail. I generally like Marty until we get to season 7. Once we hit that point, it just leaves me wondering what the hell happened to Marty. So, let's get into it.
In bed?
No.
Damn, I lost the pool.
We first meet Marty in season 4. Rory shows up to her first day of class at Yale, and we see that Marty and Rory are the only early birds in the classroom. Given what we find out later about Marty's financial situation, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be especially anxious. That's not to say that he doesn't care about school, I'm sure he does, but he has an extra incentive to do well at Yale. We then get an official introduction to Marty, and I think that his introduction is fantastic. So Paris and Rory have a party at their dorm. Later that night, Rory walks out into the hallway to find naked Marty on the floor. Marty is super embarrassed, as one would be. So far, he seems like a pretty cool guy. If anyone has any fun theories as to how he ended up naked, I would love to hear about it. I haven't really come up with anything myself. We see Marty 2 episodes later in episode 5. Marty comes up to Rory while she's in her pajamas. Rory is frazzled because she overslept. Marty offers her his food, and then he insists that she meet his friends. And it's pretty clear that she doesn't want to, but he drags her over to the quote-unquote breakfast crew. And this is where we get awkward Marty. Marty tells Rory that he was too embarrassed to approach her before, which makes sense, but then he says that he finally felt confident enough to approach her because she's in her pajamas, and he says that now they're even. I feel like Marty had to do some serious mental gymnastics to conclude that someone getting breakfast in their pajamas is equivalent to being found naked in a hallway. This is a controversial scene in the fandom because a lot of fans feel that Marty was being a jerk because he tried to embarrass Rory in front of his friends. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I think this scene could be looked at in 2 ways. 1, Marty was trying to embarrass Rory and get even by introducing her to his friends. Or, option 2, Marty finally felt comfortable enough to talk to Rory, and once he already started talking to her, he saw it as an opportunity to introduce her to his friends. It's clear that he has mentioned her to his friends before, so it's possible that he didn't intend to embarrass her in front of his friends. Later in the episode, we find out how Rory feels about Marty. When Lorelai asks Rory if naked guy is hot, Rory says,
Naked guy is Marty, and it's not like that. He's sweet.
So this conversation shows that Rory doesn't see Marty as a potential love interest, and that she's not mad at Marty for the way that he introduced her to his friends. 4 episodes later, Marty comes up to Rory at the Harvard-Yale game. Richard takes a liking to Marty right away. I think that Richard sees Marty as a kindred spirit. First of all, Marty is a Yale man, and second of all, Marty found himself naked. Richard, as we find out, spent an entire month naked his sophomore year. Emily is also super nice to Marty. She invites him to eat with them, and before Marty leaves, Emily gives him a Tupperware with food. I think that Emily and Richard like Marty primarily because he goes to Yale. This scene is a good look for Marty. He seems like a pretty chill, fun guy. He has good rapport with the entire family. He's super friendly. I like how he calls Richard Obi-Wan. It gives the impression that Marty knows how to interact with adults. And Richard makes it a point to say,
I like that boy.
So, season 4 Marty seems pretty alright, depending on how you interpret the dining room scene. We don't get any clear indications from Marty that he likes Rory, and to this point, one could argue that he genuinely wants to be friends in season 4. We only see Marty in 3 episodes of season 4, and after episode 9, we don't see or hear about him for the rest of the season. The show implies that they have become friends, but we don't get any information on what their friendship is like until season 7. Season 5. Season 5 is where we really get to know Marty. Episode 3 specifically gives us a ton of information. In this episode, Marty and Rory run into each other while Rory is moving into her dorm. This scene bothers me a little bit because I feel like Rory was being kind of dismissive and inconsiderate to the moving crew. We find out that Marty has had an interesting summer. First of all, he met Nicole Richie, and second of all, he found out that his father wasn't his real father, and that his uncle is his father. Marty also states,
I swear my dad looked relieved.
He did not.
I heard him say, phew.
So Marty has had a complicated relationship with his dad. We also learn about Marty's financial situation. When they run into Logan, we learn that Marty bartends for rich people. So here we have 3 characters who represent the wealth disparity at Yale. Logan represents the 1%. He doesn't have to care about school or finances. Rory didn't grow up with money, but she always had a security blanket when it comes to money. She has her grandparents. She had the privilege of going to a private school like Chilton. Marty doesn't have the same privileges. He has to work while he's in school. We later learn in season 7 that Marty actually has 4 jobs. He does landscaping, he tutors, he works at a bookstore, and he bartends. In this respect, I feel like Marty is kind of a missed opportunity for the show. I've seen at least a few comments talking about how Marty didn't really play a role on the show, and I feel like he was valuable as a contrast to Logan and his privileged lifestyle. I think the show should have shown not just the financial disparity between Logan and Marty, but also the financial inequality between Rory and Marty. We also get confirmation in this episode that Marty likes Rory. He goes to Asher Fleming's wake, and during the wake, he helps Rory out. He then asks Rory if she has a boyfriend. Rory doesn't give a clear answer, but now we know that he does indeed have feelings for her. In the following episode, we learn that Marty brings leftover food from his bartending gigs to Rory's dorm. I think that's pretty cool. I would love to have some leftovers from a bartending gig. I'm sure it's really good food. Later in the episode, we see Marty and Rory studying on a bed. Rory mentions that she broke up with her boyfriend and that she's having trouble with her dad. Marty chimes in that his relationship with his father got better after the truth came out. I like this scene because I like the fact that Marty doesn't jump on the boyfriend comment right away. He does start off by talking about his father in an effort to validate Rory's feelings that relationships with fathers can be tough. Only after that does he ask her again about the boyfriend. I know that a lot of people feel that Marty is cringy because he's pretending to be friends with her while at the same time wanting a relationship. And when it comes to these types of situations, I feel like a person should be given a timeline to build up the courage to ask someone out. I think this is especially true for college-age people. Not everyone has developed the confidence to ask someone out right away, so I wouldn't fault Marty necessarily for not being able to confess his feelings quite yet. I am willing to give a reasonable timeline. And looking at the show, we've also kind of seen this with Lorelai and Luke. Luke took a long time to show his feelings for Lorelai, and during that time, we've seen Luke display jealousy numerous times and do a lot of things for Lorelai. So this scene with Rory and Marty is uncomfortable for me to watch, but I wouldn't necessarily blame Marty for being so hesitant. It really comes down to the approach for me. It does hurt to learn that a person is only friends with you because they want a relationship, so it's not entirely fair of Marty to keep his feelings hidden. But I am willing to factor in the age of the person and how long it took them to share this information. In the following episode, Marty brings leftovers again. He later sees Rory and Anna, the Chilton girl, at a pub. Rory states,
"That's different. Marty's just a friend. Nothing romantic, just a good pal."
When Rory loses Anna, the first person that she calls is Marty. So although we haven't seen Marty that much, it's implied that they are very close. He feels comfortable walking into her dorm. They feel comfortable studying on a bed together, and Rory relies on Marty for help. As they're looking for Anna, Rory is ranting about Logan, and this is where Marty blows up on her. He says,
Oh, stop it.
What?
He's not coming after you. He likes you.
Now, could Marty have expressed himself nicely? Yes.
He likes you. Stop being so naive. It's annoying.
Was he wrong in the statements that he made? No. Even if Marty wasn't interested in Rory, I could see this playing out in a very similar fashion. So in other words, I could see how a friend would get annoyed with Rory in this moment. I don't think that he should have expressed himself the way that he did, but I could totally see someone like Paris saying something very similar. Marty then gets very upset, and Rory gets into a cab, but he decides to walk. I think that Marty didn't get into a cab primarily because he was so upset, but also I don't think he got into a cab because a cab equals money, and we know that he doesn't have the money. In episode 15, we find out that Marty has been avoiding Rory. Rory sees him in the courtyard and she yells hey to him, but he runs away. I think that this is the first time that Rory realizes that he has been avoiding her. So it's been 5 episodes since they last spoke. Rory acknowledges that they haven't been that close lately, but I think that she didn't realize that they haven't been close at all up until this point. Now, I don't hate Rory, but this episode is not a good look for her. It seems like she started to care about Marty only after she found out that he didn't want to be around her. Later, Rory sees Marty outside while she's in a Yale newspaper meeting. Rory literally walks out in the middle of the meeting while Doyle is talking.
Are you serious?
Rory asks to hang out, but Marty is uncomfortable. She tells him,
I miss you a lot.
So it looks like Rory didn't care about Marty and didn't notice that he has been gone for 5 episodes, but as soon as she found out that he didn't want to be around her, she dropped everything that she was doing in order to get him back. Rory goes way out of her way in order to make Marty feel welcome. She decorates her whole dorm room, she puts on a wig, and she buys different pretzels from all around the world and orders pizza. It feels like she's trying extra hard to win him back, and I see this as her feeling insecure with the idea of someone not liking her. When they sit down to watch the show, Marty's being super awkward, and as a result, he makes a terrible decision. He grabs a bunch of wasabi and he puts it in his mouth. Marty makes a lot of bad decisions in this episode, and this is one of them. Apparently, that situation broke the ice, and when we see them again, they're lounging comfortably talking about shows. Also, oh my god, the way that they're sitting. Rory has her legs on him, and he has his hands on her legs. I would love to know what people think of this particular situation. Now, I don't want to be prudish, and I do think that men and women can be friends, and a straight man and a straight woman who are both friends can be affectionate with each other. But I feel like in that situation, there would at least need to be some dialogue beforehand to establish the fact that neither one of them sees this as anything else. Maybe I'm being a grandma about this, but I haven't seen Rory be as cuddly with any one of her other friends. This scene also makes me wonder how often they would lie together like that. So is that part of their friendship? Have they been cuddling this whole time? And I don't know, it just leaves a lot of open questions. Logan then comes in and he invites Rory to Chinese food. He sees that Marty is at her dorm and he invites Marty as well. Rory clearly wants to go out, and so she accepts the invitation. I think that if Rory was truly being a friend, she would have said no. If this was a standard hangout, I wouldn't mind Rory accepting Logan's invitation, but she literally chased Marty down and begged him to hang out with her, and then she went out of her way to plan the whole evening, and then she drops all of those plans. If she truly wanted Marty back in her life and to repair that relationship, then a real friend would have canceled. Marty also accepts the invitation, and this is another bad Marty decision. He should have said no. First of all, he doesn't like these people, and second of all, he knows that he doesn't have the money. I think that Marty did this out of a preservation of his ego. They are also in college, and I do think that during that period of time, people say yes to social activities even if they don't want to go because they want to be accepted, but still, that's a stupid decision. So they all go out to dinner, and then the check comes. Colin says that everybody owes $75. $75 adjusted for inflation would be approximately $125 today, give or take. That is a lot of money, especially for a college student. Logan offers to cover Marty, and Marty declines, saying that he's going to go find an ATM. Yet another bad decision by Marty. So I know that Logan has been criticized for his offer to pay, and I know that some fans feel that he was being condescending by doing so. I personally don't think that Logan intended to insult Marty. He also told Rory that he will pay for her, and then he very casually suggested covering Marty as well. While I do think that the action of offering to pay can be taken as an insult, I didn't really feel that that was the case in this particular situation. We know that Logan can be quite privileged, and I don't want to talk about Logan in this video, but in this particular case, I do feel that he was being very nonchalant when he made the offer. I also understand that Marty has an insecurity about his financial position, so he is more inclined to interpret the action as an insult, but at this point, he was between a rock and a hard place. Rory runs after Marty and finds him standing outside of the restaurant. Marty says that he only has $18 in his bank account. Okay, so this really leaves me wondering, how much cash did he actually have on hand? He knew that he was going out with rich people, and he should have known that there's always the possibility that people would want to split the check. It's a common practice to split the check, and I feel like if you're going out with new people, there's always the chance that their practice is to split the check. Did he even have the money on hand to cover a regular dinner bill? I don't know, it just feels like he walked into this himself and he just didn't know how to get himself out of it. I feel like he made a very, very bad decision in this case. Rory ends up bailing him out and she gives him the money. This scene is just so uncomfortable to watch. It feels like Marty just kept digging and digging himself into a hole. Now, I do think that Rory wasn't being a good friend by accepting the invitation, but Marty should have said no, and if he was already out at dinner, he should have then just accepted Logan's offer. Back at the dorms, Marty finally tells Rory that he likes her. I think that Marty waited way too long with his confession. Going back to what I said before, a person I think should be given a reasonable amount of time to share their feelings, but he passed that limit. Then, Rory invites him over to finish watching Duck Soup, and he declines. What bothers me is that Rory is just way too insistent in asking him to stay, which I think was kind of misguided on her part. So, season 5 Marty is super awkward Marty. He makes a lot of poor decisions. Sometimes it's very hard to watch. I don't think he should have waited as long as he did to confess his feelings. At the latest, he should have told her how he feels when she was ranting about Logan. Rather than avoiding her, the mature thing to do would have been to tell her how he feels and explain that he wants some distance because of his feelings. Given the fact that he's 19, I'm willing to chalk it up to a tough maturing process, so to this point, I don't see him as a terrible guy. He's emotionally immature, but he's not a terrible person. He wasn't being fair to Rory. Rory wasn't being fair to Marty. She obviously had no obligation to go out with him, but she wasn't really being a good friend either. We see that Marty does things for Rory all the time, but Rory doesn't seem to offer the same reciprocation. Do I fault her for not picking up on the fact that he likes her? That's a tough one, so that's kind of a yes and no. Normally, I'd say that, at that age, a person might err on the side of, oh, this person's just being super nice. What kind of tips me off is the fact that he flat out asked her whether or not she has a boyfriend, and I feel like that should be a clue that this person might like you. If both of them were older, I would judge both of their actions a lot more harshly, so I'm willing to give Marty and Rory a pass on this situation. I don't think that Rory is being a good friend, but I'm willing to be open to the possibility that she didn't really fully consider how he felt about her, even though in some ways I feel like she was given quite a few clues. So to be clear, I'm not faulting Rory for not realizing that Marty likes her. I think that she had some hints, but because of her age, I'm letting it slide. Season 7. Season 7 is where I can't, in good conscience, defend Marty. I think he seriously goes off the rails, and I know that some people don't fully accept what happens in Season 7 overall, because at that point, the show had different writers, and so if you're in that camp, that's totally fine, but since it's part of the show, I'm going to talk about it. Rory's new friend Lucy keeps talking about her boyfriend. We finally meet boyfriend, and ta-da, it's Marty. Marty acts like he doesn't know Rory. Rory goes along with it, and I kind of understand her. I would probably react the same way because it happened very suddenly and she was caught off guard. I like the fact that she confronts Marty right away and she asks him what the hell happened. Marty gives a terrible response. So Marty's decision is insanely unreasonable. It makes no sense to me. The only theory that I can come up with is that he probably spoke to Lucy about a girl that he used to like his freshman and sophomore year. And so he was afraid that if she met Rory, she would find out that, oh, Rory's the girl that he used to like. It still doesn't justify Marty's actions, but this theory at least offers a little bit of an explanation. In episode 9, Rory comes into Lucy's dorm and Marty's being insanely cold. Rory is very bothered by this, which is very reasonable. Marty is just a complete jerk. This is truly terrible Marty. Before, one could argue that he was just insecure and too nervous about expressing his feelings, but now it's shown that he is one of those guys that just gets mad at a person for rejecting them. Rory decides to confront Marty at a party, and she confronts him very bluntly. I'm not faulting her for the way that she confronted him. I think that she was being very fair. Marty warms up to Rory and he genuinely apologizes, and then it seems like everything is copacetic. Later in the evening, Marty and Rory are sitting and chatting on a couch, and Marty gets very flirty, and then he says,
And you are more beautiful than ever.
Very bad Marty. All of his actions so far in season 7 have been atrocious. He pretended not to know Rory, he was very cold to her, and then as soon as he warmed up to her, he started to hit on her while he had a girlfriend. The following episode, Rory and Logan run into Lucy and then Marty comes in. Logan right away says that he knows Marty and Marty tries to minimize how well they know each other. He also tries to leave the conversation as fast as possible. At dinner, Marty is acting awkwardly and again, kind of rude. We see at dinner that he's looking down at his food, he's not saying anything, and he's not even paying attention. Even if he heard Lucy's story before, I feel like the least he can do is act like he cares. They then start talking about how much Marty works, and this is where Lucy mentions that Marty has 4 jobs. Logan says that 4 jobs is a lot of work, and then Marty makes a very passive-aggressive comment at Logan.
Hey, I'm just waiting for that trust fund to kick in.
When Marty picks up Rory's napkin, this is where Logan finally snaps. I don't think that Logan should have revealed the truth the way that he did. The sequence of events does show that Logan was incited over time, but I don't think that it justifies his actions here. Also, Lucy's reaction is way over the top. When I first saw this scene, I wasn't sure if Lucy, the character, was just acting outrageous because she's an actress, It was just, there's something about that scene that made it seem like it was just too much overacting, that Lucy was not being genuine. And this is not an attack on the actress. I happen to really like this actress. We find out later that Lucy broke up with Marty, and I'm super happy about that. Season 7 Marty is atrocious Marty. I can't defend anything that he does. His actions are unreasonable and he's a total dick. He literally dug himself a hole by pretending that he didn't know Rory. He treated Lucy poorly and he treated Rory poorly. So to conclude, I think that Marty had a chance for a redemption arc. I would have been okay with Marty if he stopped at season 5. I would have found some reasons for why he's just so awkward. But when we get to season 7, he really takes a nosedive. It would have been great if the show gave Rory a real guy friend who she actually cared about and who didn't actually want to get with her. So I guess those are my thoughts on Marty. So I think that Marty would have been okay, but he just took a terrible, terrible turn. And what I think is kind of sad is that based on what we know what happens in season 7, I feel like a lot of fans are inclined to reinterpret a lot of his actions in season 4 and season 5. I feel like in season 4 and season 5, he wasn't terrible. He made a lot of bad choices, but he might not necessarily be malicious. Based on what we see in season 7, he really does become monstrous. And looking back on season 4 and season 5, we could look at all those prior actions as him being a pretty bad guy.